And we're back for our UFC 324 best bets. Gaethje versus Pimblett for the interim championship this week. Interim lightweight championship is this week. The first ever UFC card on Paramount. And again, it is main evented for that interim lightweight strap. Earlier in the week, we posted our full predictions for this card for UFC 324. And obviously, with this being a 5 best bets video, I'm not going to get a chance to talk about every single individual fight. But again, that's already posted on the channel, linked in the description down below. So go check out that video if you have not yet. But this, again, specifically is my 5 best bets for this card. And before we get into it, folks, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more UFC content here on the channel. We'll be back next week for UFC 325 predictions and best bets. Obviously, featherweight championship on the line over in Australia between Alexander Volkanovski and Diego Lopez. So go make sure to join us for that video later next week. But for now, again, 5 best bets for this card. Also on the main channel, Greedo plays daily college basketball and daily NBA best bets alongside with our NFL championship game predictions, obviously the AFC and the NFC, Patriots, Broncos, Rams versus Seahawks. Again, all of that's on the main channel, Greedo plays. Okay, now on to the first of our 5 best bets for UFC 324. We're going to look at money lines, parlays, inside the distance, over, under. We're going to get through all of that in today's video. I will say this before we get into it. I think it's a semi-tough card to bet on. Not a lot of good straight, value on money line plays. There's only one that I could find in the entire card. So we got to look at some other things today. And the first bet we'll look at, inside the distance at plus 100 for Josh Hokett. Maybe my favorite one of the night, legitimately. Compare, when we look at the value at what we get it as and what the fight is and what the bet actually is, I love this for Josh Hokett at plus 100. Guys, if Hokett wins, which I expect him to, I don't think it's going to the scorecards. Josh Hokett, 7-0 fighting Denzel Freeman. I know I don't want to say there's hype around Denzel Freeman. I don't think there is at all, but there's hope for Denzel Freeman that he can make this kind of into an ugly fight against Josh Hokett, keep Hokett from, getting to him, obviously, and taking him down on the mat, and obviously staying off his back in general, the hope is that that's what Denzel Freeman can do against Josh Hokett. I'm here to say I think Josh Hokett's going to take Denzel Freeman down. I think he's going to dominate him on the mat. Okay, I've been very adamant on the fact that I think Josh Hokett is actually, very far in the UFC. You can dislike what he says and what his gimmick is, but the guy can fight. And again, despite all the points he makes, I'm not going to get into the several points Josh Hokett, builds himself upon. The one that goes a long way, which I think, again, is very, I think is the smartest thing he says by far, is not all of these guys in the heavyweight division are athletes. And all these guys have the wrestling to keep up with them. They're not athletic enough to keep up with him. And he's going to go out here and ragdoll a bunch of these guys before finding his way into the top 15. That's the truth, okay? Nothing against Denzel Freeman, but I legitimately look at Denzel Freeman as just another guy on Josh Hokett's resume. Josh Hokett, his last fight, doesn't even need to hit the mat. Takes on a fighter in Max Jimenez, who Hokett knocked down twice in the span of a minute. Again, won by 56-second knockout. Not surprising that he won the fight. The final result and how Josh Hokett did it was a little surprising, but regardless, he wins. I expect a takedown in this one, and I expect domination on the mat for Josh Hokett over Denzel Freeman. Early in the week, we predicted first round TKO due to ground strikes. I am sticking with that. But regardless, guys, we are given 15 minutes in this fight for Josh Hokett to find a finish. And again, this is a former NFL player, played with the Arizona Cardinals and the San Francisco 49ers. He's a guy who has a gas tank. He's a professional athlete, and nothing against Denzel Freeman. But he is not an NFL level athlete. He's not. I mean, the talent pool is much smaller for NFL players than it is MMA fighters. It is much harder to be an NFL tight end for multiple seasons than it is to be a UFC fighter. And I'm not disregarding anything that any UFC fighter has done or anything that Denzel Freeman has done. But what I'm saying is that there is an athletic advantage, there is a cardio and gas tank advantage, and there's an endurance, well, that's the same thing. There's an endurance advantage for Josh Hokett here. So if this fight goes late, which I don't think it's going to, again, the way I see this fight playing out is Josh Hokett getting a takedown, Hokett going to side control and just dominating. That's the way I see it happening. I see, potential. I don't think he's going to mount it, but I think potentially a crucifix, and I just see, again, straight domination, because I think Hokett is going to be overwhelming for Denzel Freeman once that fight hits the ground. But if it does go late, who's going to be the one pushing the pace at the end of the fight? I believe it's going to be Josh Hokett. Unless Hokett gets completely fraud checked. I know Freeman does trade in Colorado, but again, he's fighting a guy who is a former professional NFL player, professional football player, played 4 years at Fresno State, a collegiate wrestler at Fresno State as well. I'm putting a lot into what Josh Hokett I think he can be, And I just think this is straight domination. Again, I've been very, adamant on the fact that I think Josh Hogan's going to be a top 15 fighter. Just because, again, his wrestling is going to be overwhelming for a lot of guys. Denzel Freeman did lose to Isaiah Pinson in PFL by split decision, but still, again, he lost to him. Back-to-back victories for Freeman going into this fight. Asplund, he submitted. Hugo Cunha, he beat. Mark Buglio, he beat. Again, guys, none of those guys are that great. Asplund, sure, he's entertaining. Is Asplund a high-level fighter? No. Okay. Buglio came out of nowhere. It was a weird fight. Didn't understand it. Felt like a contender fighting. Good on Freeman for winning, but who cares? Hugo Cunha, not impressed. Josh Hogan has been dominant so far. The TKO finish on the contender, the knockout win. I don't think he's going to straight up just stand and bang with Denzel Freeman. I think Hogan finds the easiest pathway to victory. It's a massive spot for him. Obviously, the UFC feels well enough on Josh Hogan, or good enough on Josh Hogan to put him on a type of card like this. They're putting him on the first ever Paramount card. He's very early on the card as well. Very likely chance he's the first finish in the Paramount era, because the first two fights, I could see honestly Ty Miller finishing Adam Fugit, but Ty Miller, Adam Fugit, then Ricky Tercios, Cameron Smotherman. I don't think we're going to get a finish in Smotherman versus Tercios. So very good chance Freeman can be the first ever, or Hogan over Freeman can be the first ever finish on Paramount. I think Hogan's definitely going to take advantage on the mic too. First ever mic time with Joe Rogan if he wins. Just think about it. Circumstances, I think Hogan wins, and he likely wins within the distance. Hogan plus 100 to get a finish against Denzel Freeman. On now to our second best bet of the video. We go to an over-under. We're looking at this fight between Nikita Kirlov and Modestas Bicowskis. I'm going to go under 1.5 rounds here. I'm expecting a knockout. It's pretty clear I'm expecting a knockout on the side of Bicowskis to beat Kirlov. I could also see a Kirlov finish as well. But the main reason I'm looking at this, obviously, is the chin of Nikita Kirlov and what it has turned out to be since his return. Obviously, and I've detailed the fact that we thought he wasn't alive anymore, living on the Russia-Ukraine border. We hadn't heard anything out of Nikita Kirlov in legitimately over a year. Didn't know if this guy was still alive. He is. But since he's come back from the dead, or just come back from, not making any public appearances or doing any interviews, he's been a shell of his former self. Kirlov, who's only 33 years old, has returned, got knocked out by Dominic Reyes in the first round, and knocked out in the first round by Bogdan Guskov. Likely, in my opinion, Modestas Bicowskis is going to knock out Kirlov in the first round as well. Okay, that's what we predicted at the beginning of the week. That's what I'm still remaining on. But we are given 7.5 minutes essentially for this. I think there is going to be a finish one way or the other early in this fight. Could it be Kirlov? Yes. Is it likely to be Kirlov? No. Bicowskis will probably find this, he'll probably find a knockout pretty quickly, in my opinion. 2 out of the last 3 fights for Modestas Bicowskis have finished in the first round. Paul Craig finish was a stoppage at the end of the first round back in September. Split decision victory over Ion Cutelaba, but then also the first round knockout over Rafael Corcuera, who, yes, one of the worst UFC fighters of all time, but a win is a win, so it is what it is. Bicowskis has power, he hits hard, and as long as he just brings it to Kirlov, I think he's going to knock him out. At the same time, too, it's a do or die fight for Kirlov, legitimately. And I didn't just say that because obviously we thought he was dead. I mean, look where you're at now. Kirlov, before the time of his absence, had won 3 fights in a row. He had knocked out Alexander Gustafsson in one of Gustafsson's, a couple return fights. He had beaten Volkan Oezdemir, was still in the top 10. He had submitted Ryan Spann in a co-main event, originally supposed to be a main event, but got turned into a co-main. And then he comes back, supposed to fight Azamat Murzakanov, fight gets canceled, gets Dominic Reyes over 2.5 years after that Ryan Spann fight and gets knocked out. And then runs into Bogdan Guskov and then gets knocked out. Legitimately, back against the wall for Kirlov. I'm not telling you he's some knockout artist. He's got 12 of them in his career. You don't think of Nikita Kirlov and think, oh, he's just going to knock you out cold. But at some point, he's going to have to look to be an aggressor in one of these fights because he has just been a punching bag, more so in his last 2 fights. He's kind of just stood there. He's taken damage. He has thrown some back, but his fights recently have just been more like Kirlov, all right, just waiting for his opponent to connect. The Guskov fight, again, Kirlov was throwing, but Guskov was throwing harder. And Nikita Kirlov didn't get going at all in the Dominic Reyes fight. Obviously, Reyes brought the fight to him, but we have not seen an aggressive Nikita Kirlov trying to get the fight down to the mat, because that's where Kirlov can be really successful. Hell, we saw that against Ryan Spann. Took Ryan Spann down, triangle choke finish. Nikita Kirlov, he's been back for 2 fights, has not attempted 1 takedown. That's where Nikita Kirlov's supposed to be best. Sure, he knocked out Gustafsson, but that was Gustafsson in 2022. Obviously, that was expected. Kirlov is supposed to be this really good wrestler with really good grappling, and we just haven't seen it yet. If he can get the fight down against Modestas Bicowskis, yeah, there's a pretty clear advantage down there in my opinion. Especially, again, let me make this clear, if Kirlov's on top. And if Kirlov is the one looking for the finish, if Kirlov is looking for submissions. So again, it goes both ways. Is it what's more likely? Definitely Bicowskis to get a knockout. And what would we rather have too? I mean, I did pick Bicowskis to win, but obviously for this individual bet, what would I rather happen? And what is the easiest pathway to success? Definitely a Bicowskis knockout victory. But at the same time, it is possible. It is possible Kirlov takes him down and gets a sub. It is. Is it likely? Just the way Kirlov's fighting? No. Because he has been a punching bag and the chin all of a sudden has just disappeared in his last couple fights. But it is a possibility of what could happen tonight or on Saturday night. The Bicowskis ground game is okay. It's not great. Don't forget, Bicowskis did get chinned by Vitor Petrino a couple fights ago. Again, Kirlov not a knockout puncher, not a guy who is known for his knockout power. But if he lands the right shot, he could put down Bicowskis as well. Regardless, again, I think we see a finish either way. Again, likely it will be Bicowskis knockout of Nikita Kirlov. I'm starting to think, again, Kirlov's just at the end of his run. He's only 33, but this, again, we can't even call it a second stint because he didn't leave the UFC, but he didn't bow out, but he was inactive, I thought, in what could have been the best part of his career. 3 consecutive victories. He was 31 at the time. You're in your prime officially now. And obviously, again, I think there was some trouble for him getting to the States or obviously leaving that, Ukraine-Russia war zone of sorts. Again, I don't exactly know exactly where he was. I think it was on the border, but I don't want to get into that entire situation. But he's come off of that and he's just looked really bad, man. I think Bicowskis gets him. I think the under 1.5 is a really great value considering the way Bicowskis' last couple fights have gone and the way Kirlov's fights have gone. Kirlov's got knocked out in back-to-back fights in the first round against Reyes and Guskov. Why wouldn't Bicowskis be able to do the same exact thing? So I'm going to go Modestas Bicowskis, first round knockout. Again, that's my pick. It's in the video. It's in the predictions video if you want to watch it. But the best bet here, in my opinion, is under 1.5 rounds for this fight between Kirlov and Bicowskis. If Kirlov knocks him out in the first round, which I don't think is going to happen, but if he does, I'll take it too. But we're going to go under 1.5 any way possible. Under 1.5 rounds for Nikita Kirlov and Modestas Bicowskis. On to our third best bet of the video. We look now to our first parlay of the year. The only parlay of the video. I guess this is technically out of order because I kind of thought Natalia Silva Rose Namajunas was the first fight of the main card, but it's probably better they're not. But now Natalia Silva Rose Namajunas is the fourth to last fight on the card, which it shouldn't be. You should put a Thibaut Gutierrez on the main card or Umar Figueiredo. Anyways, the 2-leg parlay is going to be Charles Energy Johnson and Natalia Silva. 2 fighters that are in great positions to win this week. 2 fighters who are expected to win this week. And I think this one is going to come fairly easy. It's a 2-leg parlay at -115. Charles Johnson going into his fight against Alex Perez is a -210 favorite. Natalia Silva against Rose Namajunas is a -440 favorite. Don't love parlaying a -440, but Natalia Silva beating Rose Namajunas is one of the better locks I think you can find in a very long time. Again, for women's MMA, -440 for Natalia Silva is one of the better locks you're going to find. I understand it's a women's fight and anything can happen, but Natalia Silva, I just don't see a world where she loses to Rose. And I'll get to that in a second. There's a lot I can say about that fight. First, Charles Johnson versus Alex Perez. We talked about at the beginning of the week, Charles Johnson's only getting better. He's 35, but he's a rare knockout puncher, power puncher at 125 pounds. Alex Perez has just been losing fights over and over again. Yes, he picked up a random win over Mateus Nicolau, but ultimately he's won 1 fight since the pandemic started, and that was against Mateus Nicolau, who didn't have a chin. Other than that, guillotine loss to also Amabayev. The weird knee injury takedown by Tatsuro Taira. I'm happy, thank you. Muhammad Mokaev decision. Pantoja subbed him. And obviously the Figueiredo guillotine choke for the championship. Perez, I don't think, has ever been the highest of level. Think about his run to the belt in the first place. He had lost to Joseph Benavidez. He then beat Mark De La Rosa, beat Jordan Espinosa, and beat Jussier Formiga on Formiga's way out of the UFC via leg kicks, and all of a sudden he wound up in a title fight. He was originally supposed to fight Brandon Moreno. It was supposed to be Garbrandt versus Figueiredo, if you remember. Garbrandt obviously couldn't make 125 at the time, and yeah, they went to Figueiredo versus Perez instead, and obviously that fight didn't go very long. But again, Perez got that title fight by beating Jussier Formiga, who never fought in the UFC again after the Perez fight. Did actually beat Felipe Bunez over in LFA. I think he missed weight for that fight, but that's neither here or there. Prez's run has always been kind of overrated, and he's just stuck in the top 15 because of the fact, well, he fought for the belt once, and he beat a guy who doesn't have a chin in Mateus Nicolau, who should have been getting knocked out by Manel Kape at the time. It is what it is. Charles Johnson should easily take advantage of this opportunity. Charles Johnson's a much bigger fighter. I don't think Alex Perez honestly offers up too much to Johnson. Johnson should be able to box his face in. Perez is 5'6", Charles Johnson's 5'9", I believe more like 5'10", we had talked about it too at the beginning of the week. Yeah, Charles Johnson's a knockout win over the current champion in Josh Van. Will Van still be the champion by the time Charles Johnson potentially gets a title shot? Maybe not, but if you're Johnson, you win this fight, now you get a legitimately call for the title because you have a win over the champ. The champ has one loss in the UFC. It's Charles Johnson. So it's a big fight for him. He should be able to do it. In terms of Natalia Silva versus Rose Namajunas, what does Rose Namajunas do better than Natalia Silva? And hold on, what does any women's flyweight in the world do better than Natalia Silva? Shevchenko wrestling. Maybe. Again, guys, the only 125er in the world that might be better than Natalia Silva is Dakota Ditcheva, but she doesn't fight in the UFC. That's the one, and I keep saying it, that's the one PFL claim where they have the best fighter in a weight class. It is Ditcheva. Maybe. I think Silva might beat her. I think Silva, would be able to get out the way of the big, strikes that Ditcheva throws. Obviously, Ditcheva hits very hard for a 125-pound woman, but still, Silva's really good. She's very technically sound. The one exception, again, in the weight class is going to be Shevchenko in the UFC. If Shevchenko just holds on to her and hugs her for 25 minutes and, we have to watch The Reign of Terror by Valentina Shevchenko still. I'm sick of it. I am. I think if Valentina still fought like she did when she was beating Jessica sure. I'm sick of watching Valentina grapple snooze fest for 25 minutes where she just holds on to you the entire fight. Whatever, man. Get Natalia Silva the belt and give her the opportunity. Again, this is not about Valentina versus Silva, but I think Silva will win that fight. Valentina, by the way, is only getting older. Silva's 28, so there's that. In this particular fight, though, what does Rose do better than Natalia Silva? I don't know. Striking, no. Grappling, maybe. Not really, not at all. I can't even give Rose that. I don't know where Rose wins. What, does Rose get lucky and land a head kick? That's legitimately your only pathway to victory here. Now, Namajunas has said that the UFC has told her if she wins this fight, she's getting a title shot. I kind of believe her, honestly. This was supposed to be Grasso Namajunas. Instead, Silva's filling in for Grasso, who she just beat, which makes no sense. But now they're doing Natalia Silva versus Rose Namajunas instead. I actually think, if Rose wins, they're going to give her a title shot. The UFC's been waiting to do and wanting to do Rose versus Valentina for years since they were the 115 and 125-pound champions. I think if Rose wins, they're actually going to make that fight. It's obviously not going to happen. Natalia Silva's a minus 440 favorite for a reason, and she's beating Rose Namajunas. 30-27, a complete domination on the feet for Natalia Silva. She'll run circles around Rose Namajunas, in my opinion. Maybe even get a late finish, but I just don't think it's competitive. Natalia Silva is just too good of a striker for Rose Namajunas, and it's not even competitive. So this is an easy two-leg parlay, in my opinion. Minus 115. These are the two of the biggest locks on the card, in my opinion. Again, you could have looked at maybe an Alexander Hernandez, a Ty Miller, but I'll do Charles Johnson, pairing that with Natalia Silva at minus 115. Okay, on to our fourth best bet of the video. We will be looking now at another, it's not an over-under technically, it's just inside the distance. So I found, again, the fight to go to the decision was minus 115. To not go to this decision was minus 105. I'd rather this, obviously, than the over-under 2.5 rounds. We will buy ourselves the final 2.5 minutes of the fight, just in case of a late fight finish. Again, this was probably, I'll say this now, this was probably the last bet I found. I kind of struggled a little bit to find a fifth best bet. I will tell you this again. I said this at the beginning of the video. I'll say it again. I think it's really hard to find good bets on this card. It's not a great straight betting card because some of these pay-per-views, and usually you'll get UFC pay-per-views where there's a lot of even money fights or at least playable money line fights where you're going to get, okay, this isn't obviously the case, but like if, say, O'Malley Song Yidong was minus 135, okay, I'm willing to play minus 135 for O'Malley, right? Or if Gagey Pimblett was minus 135 for Patty, okay, I can take it. I'm not going to play Patty Pimblett at minus 235, and I'm not parlaying that either, nor am I going to parlay or just bet on minus 210 for Sugar Sean O'Malley, right? There's no opportunity for any of these fights. Maybe there will be next week at 325, but this week there's really no opportunity in any of the fights moneyline-wise except for the one we're going to do to close the video. Anyways, we got to look at this, and this is why this was the final bet I found, but I think someone's probably going to get finished. Last Gene Silva fight we had against Diego Lopez We took the under, and that was a very eventful fight, and the under did cash on Noche. We're looking at another under in a Gene Silva fight where he's going to be fighting Arnold Allen. I know Allen hasn't had a fight go to a finish since the knee injury Calvin Kattar suffered in their Apex fight back in 2022. Since then, Allen went 25 minutes with Max Holloway, had a very boring and horrible decision fight against Movsar Evloev in Canada at 297, and then beat Giga Chikadze for a unanimous decision win back in July of 24. He hasn't fought in a year and a half, and you're going to come back after not fighting in a year and a half and fight this guy, Gene Silva, who's going to push a pace, but he's going to walk forward and walk you down. Every single Gene Silva fight in the UFC has had a finish in it. Whether that's him getting finished or him getting a finish, they don't go to the scorecards. Every single Gene Silva fight has a finish in it. Knocking out Weston Wilson in the first round. Knocking out Charles Air Jordan in the second round. Getting the doctor stoppage win against Drew Dober because of the cut above his eye. Beating Melzik Bagdasaryan in Seattle by first round knockout. Submitting Bryce Mitchell back at UFC 314 in Miami. And then again getting knocked out by Diego Lopez in the second round at Noche in San Antonio. Gene Silva is violence. His fights are wars. Someone's getting knocked out. I believe it's Arnold Allen. I know Arnold Allen has never been finished in his career. But something's got to give when you have a fighter in Arnold Allen who's never been finished against a guy in Gene Silva who's never seen a scorecard in the UFC. What's going to give? I believe Gene Silva is going to force Arnold Allen to fight an all-action type of fight, and I think we're going to see a finish on either side of the coin. I believe it's going to be Gene Silva finishing Arnold Allen. Okay, my prediction going into the fight or going into the week, and it still remains, I haven't changed it, is second round knockout for Gene Silva. I still believe that way. I think Gene Silva eventually is going to find the button and knock out Arnold Allen. At the same time, though, Allen does have power. We've seen it before. Knocked out Dan Hooker in the first round, albeit that's back in 2022, and that was a fight where Dan Hooker and Arnold Allen kind of just stood in the octagon and just threw ones and twos back and forth at each other until someone got knocked out. A very entertaining 2 minutes and 33 seconds, and yes, that was the time where Dan Hooker dropped down to 145, and Allen obviously finished him pretty quickly in London. It was in England. I don't know if it was in London specifically, but you get my point there, right? Allen does have the power to knock somebody out. We just don't see a very aggressive style all the time out of him, but Allen's a good point fighter, I'll say. Gene Silva's going to bring it to him. He's going to. Gene Silva is going to force Arnold Allen to either throw back or get knocked out. So either or, I think we're in for a finish. Again, guys, we have 15 minutes for someone to get knocked out. Could be a sub. There could be a submission potential, likely with Gene Silva more than Arnold Allen, but that could happen. Or we can get someone's going to get knocked out. I think there's going to be a knockout. I really believe so. And I think it's going to be Gene Silva knocking out Allen. Again, Allen's got underrated power, but ultimately Arnold Allen actually technically only has 3 knockdowns in the UFC. Was not credited with a knockdown in the Dan Hooker fight. Knocked down Subir Sodiq Yusuff, knocked down Jordan Rinaldi, and knocked out Yapsin Meza back in February of 2016 on an Anderson Silva Michael Bisping undercard. Whew, man, what a time on Fight Pass. Anyways, though, I think Gene Silva's going to force that finish. I think he's going to force the action. Look at his last fight against Diego Lopez. Silva fights like a madman. He's entertaining to watch, and that creates for great TV. Again, that's maybe not the best if you're cheering for Gene Silva to win the fight, but more times rather than not, yes, he does win those type of exchanges. But I mean, the amount of volume that was thrown in the Lopez-Silva fight in less than 10 minutes was absurd, and we now have 15 minutes for someone to get finished in this fight. Yeah, I'm going to bank on the fact that someone's going to get a knockout. I believe it's going to be Gene Silva, but if it's Arnold Allen, I'm not complaining either. So we're going to go with the under 1.5 rounds. Sorry, not even close. Under 3 rounds. My goodness. We're going to go with an inside the distance. We need a finish. Minus 105. That's a better way of putting it. Again, the fight is, according to Vegas, they expect this fight to go the distance. I just don't see it. I just don't see it at all. I think we're going to see a finish on either side. I think it's probably going to be Silva getting the win, but regardless, I don't care. We just need the fight to not see the scorecards. Inside the distance, minus 105. Don't care who wins. Don't care who gets knocked out. Likely going to be Gene Silva winning, though. But anyways, minus 105. Final best bet. Derrick Lewis. Guys, this is the only value I can find in the money line all week. I'm telling you, this is a tough card to bet on. There's just not much opportunity. I mean, look at all of these fights, man. Look at the big favorites on this card. And that's kind of the problem when you have a Thibaut Gutierrez and Umar Nurmagomedov in back-to-back fights, man. I mean, just here's some of these odds real quick. Ty Miller's a minus 440 favorite. Smotherman minus 205, Hokit minus 245, Hernandez minus 175, Charles Johnson minus 200, Atiba Gutierrez minus 950, Umar Nurmagomedov minus 1600. What am I supposed to do with that? Patty minus 245, Gene Silva minus 310, O'Malley minus 220. There's no value. There's no value in any of these. I'm not gonna force an underdog play. I'm not gonna just tell you to bet on Song Yudong because the value's great. No, I don't think Song's beating Sean O'Malley. I don't think Gaethje's going to beat Pimblett. I want him to beat Pimblett. I think there's a pathway for Gaethje to win. I'm not going to tell you, bet plus 185 for Gaethje just because of the straight value. We're trying to pick winners. The only underdog that I think is playable, call me crazy, it's Derrick Lewis. Guys, he's a bomb away from winning every single fight. And okay, if the price I have to pay is Derrick Lewis getting his legs kicked out for 15 minutes or getting, boxed up from range all fight long by Waldo, so be it. But the fact of the matter is we're getting Derrick Lewis at plus 240. I'm seeing plus 250 on some books. The fact that we're getting that line, I still think is fairly great. I think so. Just based off of the pure potential Derrick Lewis has to knock out Waldo Cortez Acosta. I will be transparent with you. I took Derrick Lewis at the beginning of the week, okay? It was, believe it or not, I think the only dog I took on this entire card. There's no value, guys. I think the underdogs are crap this week. Who are the underdogs that have the best chance of winning? Michael Johnson, maybe. I think Hernandez beats him. Kirlov, the kind of, locks in, but probably not. O'Malley's definitely not losing a Song, I don't think. It's Derrick Lewis. Gaethje, I think Gaethje's got a chance. Is he likely going to win? No. It's Derrick Lewis. Derrick Lewis is the only playable underdog here. This is based off the pure potential of Derrick Lewis knocking out Waldo in the first round. I'm willing to take that chance. And why am I willing to take that chance? Multiple reasons. Derrick Lewis doesn't call anybody out. It's not what he does. He called out Waldo Cortez Acosta after he beat Talison Teixeira. And by the way, he was a bigger underdog against Talison Teixeira than he was against Waldo. Or he is against Waldo. Plus 255, Derrick Lewis was against Talison Teixeira. He's plus 240 against Waldo this week. Yeah, make that one make sense, right? Again, Derrick Lewis doesn't call anybody out. He called out Waldo after he beat Teixeira. Derrick Lewis is very open, and I don't know how much of this is just gamesmanship or whatnot, but Derrick Lewis has been very open and saying, yeah, I don't know who I fight. Unless they're a massive name, I don't watch their fights. I don't know anything about them. I'm just going in there to knock their head off. That's what he said about Teixeira. Before the Teixeira fight, people kind of laughed at him, but Derrick Lewis, and I picked Derrick Lewis to win the fight. People laughed at Derrick Lewis, but he said, yeah, I told the UFC I want to keep fighting bums. Keep lining up bums like the guy I'm fighting on Saturday, because I just want to, increase the knockout streak. And keep on winning and keep getting paid. Obviously, you get double your money if you win, obviously, in the UFC with their pay structure. Well, he did. He beat Teixeira, and then he calls out Waldo. Guys, obviously, there's something Derrick Lewis is seeing. Obviously, something the camp likes. The other main reason, Derrick Lewis might be in line for a title shot. Am I the only one who's picked up on this? Again, guys, for better or for worse, I do watch every single Dana White post-fight press conference. Most of the answers, most of the stuff that he says is, wait till Tuesday. I don't make fights tonight. We make fights on Tuesday. And most of these press conferences are very, they don't mean anything, okay? They're very uneventful. The questions he gets sometimes are the dumbest thing ever. So Dana, how does it feel to put on another very successful show in Las Vegas? Dude, we don't care what his answer is to that. I want to hear something about the fights. The one very telling thing Dana White has said about the White House, and he's been very open recently in the last week that he's starting to put together a White House card. He said, after this weekend's card, he's going to start to finally finalize some fights for the White House. Again, this card this weekend is going to be very instrumental in that White House card. Sure, could he be talking about the main event? Probably. Okay, the winner of Gaethje Pimblett is probably main eventing the White House against Ilya. I can imagine that. But Dana did say about Derrick Lewis that, again, the president requested one fighter for the White House. Could have requested Conor, could have requested Masvidal, could have requested John Jones. He requested Derrick Lewis. Dana's going to do what the president wants. Okay, let's just be honest about that. Okay, the card is on the White House lawn. It's one of the biggest cards the UFC's ever going to put on. It's on the White House lawn. They're going to put Derrick Lewis on the card. If Derrick Lewis wins, Dana's going to give him a title shot. Whether that be Cyril Gane an interim fight, or for the undisputed belt against, potentially Aspinall or Gane himself, or against John Jones, I don't know. But if Derrick Lewis wins, so many pathways open up for him, and the exact line Dana said, about Derrick Lewis was, yes, that's, President Trump has requested one fighter. It's Derrick Lewis. He really wants to watch Derrick Lewis. And Dana then proceeded to say, so Derrick's next fight is going to be very big for his future. It's going to be a huge fight for what we do for what we do in 2026. Yeah, if Lewis can win, which again, it's an if, but if he lands that one bomb, which I'm hoping he does, again, there is a pathway for Derrick Lewis being the world champion at the end of the year. Just want to say that. Just want to put that out there. So, I don't know. Again, how does that influence the fight? Well, again, look ahead into what potentially could be. Okay? And I'm never going to call rigging in a UFC fight, but if there's ever a time they want a guy to win, it's Derrick Lewis. Now, they can't really affect that too much other than telling Waldo to take a dive, and I'm not going to say they're going to, tell Waldo to take a dive. I'm not saying that at all, but if it's somehow a decision, I guess I'll go Derrick Lewis. Anyways, I think Lewis is going to find that bomb, and I think at the value that we get it at, I think it's too good to pass up on. Plus 240 for Derrick Lewis to win, likely knocking out Waldo in the first round. That's how we predicted it. And again, if Derrick Lewis wins, yeah, it's likely by first round knockout. Give me the Black Beast to close the video at plus 240. Folks, thank y'all for watching our best bets for UFC 324. If you haven't yet, though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Make sure to comment if you disagree with any of the picks. We'll be back on Sunday for UFC 325, Volkanovski versus Lopez 2, and our best bets for that card will come out later in the week on Thursday, just like this video is being dropped today. Folks, thank y'all for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more, and Mamba forever.